Here's what we know. We know that the world ended, as we know it at least, about 1 million years ago, in a year that at the time they called 1985. We know that 1 million years later, people look a lot like seals, actually, you know, flippers, whiskers, all that stuff. We also know that none of the characters in this book is going to make it to the end, not just because it's 1 million years long, the book, but because Kurt Vonnegut, the author, he helpfully puts an asterisk before the name of anyone who's going to die before the day is out. So pretty much everyone gets an asterisk before their name by the end of the book, except for the narrator. But the narrator's okay because he's dead when the book begins. Now, if you're sitting out there going, Peter, you're spoiling the whole book for us, this might not be the book for you. Because Kurt Vonnegut is never really, he's never really one for plot, to be honest. I mean, he loves telling people what the plot is going to be, what the end is going to be before the story ends. It's all about the road he takes to get you there, this twisty road that's half comedy, half science fiction, and half something that's, you know, Vonnegut's own creation. And if you're sitting out there going, Peter, that's 3 halves, I know, but I don't think he'd mind. The one other thing he's really big about is he has a big idea in every book. And his big idea in this book is people are miserable. And the reason people are miserable is our brains are too big. And 1 million years in the future, that problem is taken care of. And also, we've gotten rid of these opposable thumbs that are kind of annoying. He makes the point, you know, it's hard to imagine torturing anyone in 1 million years' time because you couldn't even catch them, because all you have is a mouth and flippers. And so the world is much happier in 1 million years. And if you're wondering how we all got to look like seals in the first place, I'm not going to tell you because I got to give you some reason to read the book.
How many of you have heard of Catcher in the Rye? Oh. How many of you, how many of you have read Catcher in the Rye? Work it out. Fabulous. I'm so pleased to see so many hands go up. Let's read it again, shall we? How many of you, this is one final question, how many of you at the end of the school year keep all of your books your teachers gave you, the novels, the articles, that kind of thing? Put your hands up. You keep everything. Well, I am going to give you some personal information, and this is to encourage you to read my selection for the summer list. I read Catcher in the Rye in 9th grade, just a half dozen years ago. And to this day, it is on my nightstand in my bedroom. I've kept it all these years. I am certainly older than most 9th graders now, and I've kept it for a long time, and I've moved several times, and I've gone to college and graduate school, and I still have my original 9th grade Catcher in the Rye with my notes in there, my annotations, and I cherish it, and it's by my nightstand, not because I pick it up and read it every night, but because it continues to remind me that literature is equipment for living. It's the first book that I read and said, I get it. I get it. I get it.
If you've ridden the subway in the past year, you have probably seen this, the distinctive cover art for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It seems like everybody is reading this, and there's a good reason why. Not to be confused with The Girl with the Pearl Earring, which is what I thought at first, that it was in that series. That's a sort of quiet novel about a Vermeer painting and a sweet little maid who gets wrapped up with the artist. No. This is thrilling, frightening, disturbing. It's set in modern-day Sweden. A mixture of corporate expose, psychological drama, and whodunit. It's a total page-turner, and there are quite a few pages, but don't be put off by the thickness. It does read fast. It tells the story of Michael Blomqvist, that's my attempt at Swedish, a financial journalist accused of a crime he's sort of committed, and after he emerges from low-security prison, he takes a freelance assignment investigating the disappearance of a girl. It's a 40-year-old mystery. His unlikely partner is Lisbeth Salander, a 20-something private investigator and computer hacker who has multiple piercings and several tattoos, and little regard for the law or socially appropriate behavior. Together, they delve into the secret history of a wealthy family and the dark underbelly of Swedish society. I didn't know there was a dark underbelly to Swedish society, but there is. Violence, corruption, Nazis, sex, torture, lies, all happening in Sweden. Who knew? This is the first book in a trilogy. The second book, The Girl Who Played with Fire, is also very good and delves deeper into Lisbeth's past. And the third and final book, The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, is coming out next week. So if you're like me and you like the first, you'll certainly be in line for the second and third. There is a Swedish movie version out, and the American film version, I hear, will be starring Brad Pitt. If you're into that. Okay. The movie's not out yet. The Brad Pitt version isn't. The Swedish is. Warning, the novel has sort of R-rated themes and some pretty graphic violence, so it can be hard to take. But if you like a sort of gritty suspense with a kind of morbid twist, think John Grisham meets Seven, sort of SVU 24. If that's your cup of tea, try this out. I'll see you in September.
Why should you read this book? There's this guy who lived in London, and they have a service over there that's similar to what we have over here in New York called, the Fresh Direct service. And he makes this decision to take his daughter to a petting zoo just so she could see what real animals are like. And the reason for it, he says, is because when his daughter once was wondering where milk came from, and he's like, do you know where milk comes from? And she goes, yeah, from the internet. So when you look at it from that perspective, there's a bit of a disconnect between the food that we eat and the sources from the food, whether it comes from the internet, the grocery, or whatever. In this book, in The Omnivore's Dilemma, Michael Palin discusses 4 different meals. One of them is, of course, a Happy Meal from McDonald's, which was the standard burger fries. And he also goes down to this, he also discusses the entire history of how corn became so popular, at least for farmers to grow, and why it's so cheap and how it's made into every meal. So there's a lot of everything in this book. There's just, the 4 meals, the big, the one from McDonald's. He also discusses an organic operation, how organic is no longer something which is limited to small scale, you find some in a corner of a supermarket somewhere, how it's become real big business. He also discusses Farmer Joel and how he has an entire setup with completely beyond organic, where he has stuff that grows, he has cows that eat the grass, and the chickens that follow the grass, the cows, and the eggs and everything. Very sustainable, very old school style of farming. And then, of course, he discusses the last meal, which is where he goes foraging, where he hunts and he finds wild mushrooms. So anyway, this is just a very fascinating book that covers in great detail. If you're interested in the environment, if you're interested in where your food comes from, and if you're interested in just in general, anything that may pertain to what it is that you eat, this is definitely a great read, and I highly recommend it.
I am so excited to talk about this book. It's actually Celine's book, and she'll be the one leading the book group in the fall. But when I saw it on the list, I was super, super excited because I love this book. I was actually named for this author, and she had a lot to say. She was really popular in the 70s, which is when I was born, and my parents were influenced by her a great deal. The story is about idealism. The author escaped from the Soviet Union, and she spent her life as a political activist against sort of communism and the idea of it. So in her fiction, she takes the idea of the individual and puts them in situations where you can sort of see the conflict in the way that the author did. And it's about an idealistic young architect and his struggles. his struggles with artistic integrity and personal integrity and dealing with the issues of finding funding in popular society for really excellent work. And it is a phenomenal book. It's very visual, and I think it's important, and you will enjoy it.